Good morning, members, and welcome to the 24th day of the 68th Wyoming Legislature House Session, February the 14th, Valentine's Day. And for many of you, you probably ended up with something sweet on your desks, or we're around here. There's a lot of candy around this place before, but I think there were people handing out stuff here earlier. I would like to welcome you to the session, and if we can get started with a roll call. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 24th day, February 14th, 2025. Alamand. Aye. Andrew. Here. Angelos. Here. Banks. Excused. Bear. Here. Brady. Here. Bratton. Here. Brown Gary. Here. Brown Landon. Here. Byron. Here. Campbell Elisa. Here. Campbell Kevin. Here. Chestick. Here. Plouston. Here. Connolly. Davis. Here. Eklund. Here. Erickson. Excused. Filer. Here. Geringer. Here. Guggenmoss. Here. Haraldson. Here. Harshman. Here. Heiner. Here. Heft. Here. Jarvis. Here. Johnson. Here. Kelly. Here. Knapp. Here. Larson Lloyd. Here. Larson JT. Here. Lawley. Here. Lean. Here. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins. Excused. Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strock. Stivar.
Present.
Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Worf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker. Nicholas. 58 present, 4 excused. Storer, 59 present, 3 excused.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. Representative Stivar, you had asked for a privilege.
Privilege of the floor. I wanted to announce this. There's 5 representatives that served House District 12 here. Will Representative Edmonds, Amy, and Representative Harlan Edmonds stand up? You've got Mr. Filer here. Lars, can you stand up? All 5 of us have served House District 12. This is kind of unique that we have 5 people that represented House District 12 in the House. So let's give them a hand.
Representative Filer, do you have something for us, sir?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, can I have a quick privilege?
Please.
Thanks. Hey, guys, for years with all my kids, every morning we used to get up, we have breakfast, get them all ready for school, and they always say, Dad, I need a joke. So I have my dad joke of the day, folks, and so you can laugh at it, you can boo me, you can do whatever you want. But
Representative Filer, if this was Representative Pendergraft, I'd have to shut you down right now. But anyway, you go right ahead. You get your chance.
oh, well, Mr. Speaker, this is a good one for Valentine's Day. And I'm going to ask you all a question. Did you hear about the spiders that got engaged? No. Well, they met on the web. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, one of the mentioned representatives from this House district, if you would please welcome for the prayer of the day, Mr. Lars Lone, former House Representative HD 12, will be leading us in prayer. Representative Lone, please.
First, I'd like to say thank you all so much for inviting me here this morning. It's very nice to see some familiar faces and to be in a position in this House where I get to see you all again. As I was a former member of this House, there is a verse that I used to keep pretty close to my heart as I was serving in your guys' seats, and I'd like to share with you really quick before we get started. It comes from Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1, it says this. It says, "Woe to those who enact unjust statutes and to those who constantly record harmful decisions, so as to bribe the needy of justice and rob the poor among many people of their rights, so that widows may be their spoil and that they may plunder the orphans. Now what will you do in the day of punishment and in the devastation which will come from afar? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your wealth? Nothing remains but to crouch among the captives or fall among those killed. In spite of all of this, his anger does not turn away, and his hand is still stretched out." And it reminds me that the decisions we make in this house as leaders bear consequences, not just to the people of this house, but to our entire state. And it was a constant reminder of me that that was a pressure placed upon me, that we are judged not by the people we serve, but also by the Almighty God who is in heaven. So let us pray now, and let's thank him for keeping us safe and keeping us focused in these tasks today. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, and we praise you, and we thank you, and we honor you, for you are the center of our attention. We come to you to pray this morning because we know, Father, that you are in charge of all things. Lord, this morning we ask for understanding. We ask for humility. We ask for wisdom as we gather to look at these bills and discuss these bills. Lord, we ask that you would be in the center, in the midst of all of the decisions made today, that you, Father God, will be given the glory and the honor and the praise. Lord, we pray these things this morning in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Lone. Fellow members and guests, please join me in the salute to our precious flag. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we can find our way to our seats, we have another very special guest that we need to introduce, and I would really enjoy you guys being able to hear from this morning. So if we can go ahead and find a spot to light, we will. Yeah, you guys are just a bunch of social butterflies. I've never seen you guys. You must be over whatever the influenza's or whatever you were dealing with, because I smell lots of hand sanitizer and everything. Yeah. Obviously, you guys are on the mend, and that's good. So, okay, members, we have a very great honor this morning, and I want to make sure that we give this young lady the due that she deserves. It is with great honor and privilege to welcome back Senator Cynthia Lummus to the Wyoming Legislature. So if you would please stand. Prior to being elected to the United Senate, yes, by all means. Prior to being elected to the U.S. Senate, she served 8 years in the U.S. Congress, 14 years in the Wyoming Legislature, and 8 years as the Wyoming State Treasurer. She is currently a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee, Commerce, Science, Transportation Committee, and the Banking, Housing, and Urban Development Committee. Once again, if you wouldn't mind, please welcome our U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummus. To assume that he stole your cup, or what was the deal there? That's a long time ago.
Mr. Speaker, may I have the privilege of the floor?
Absolutely. Please proceed.
It's such a privilege for me to come home and to get a chance to visit with you and to give you a sense of the beginning of this new golden age in America. For the last years that I have come here, the message has been a little bleak, but it's a new day. And I can't even describe how different things are in Washington. You know, I served in this body, House and Senate, for 14 years. All 14 years were with Democrat governors. And I've served 12 years so far in the United States Congress, all with Democrat presidents. Until the last couple of weeks, I had never, ever served with a Republican administration. So it's a great new experience. And not only that, this is unlike anything we've ever seen in Washington. The pace at which President Trump and his administration is moving is jaw-dropping, very positive. He has signed over 300 executive orders, many of them focused to solve problems that have vexed Wyoming for the last 4 years. President Trump has lifted the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan. President Trump is lifting the Rock Springs, the Buffalo RMP. He has selected a new Bureau of Land Management Director, Kathleen Sagama, who many of us know from Denver. She is going to be a true friend of multiple use. She understands multiple use, and that was a doctrine that had escaped the attention of the last administration. President Trump signed an executive order keeping women's sports for women. It was a tremendous celebration. I got to go to the White House for the celebration, celebrate with women, 100 women of all ages coming together to thank President Trump for the executive order. Girls who want a fair chance to hone their athletic skills and abilities without concerns about having a volleyball spiked in their face that causes a concussion or other unfairnesses associated with the difference in capabilities from people born men and people born women. It was the happiest day. All these women are on bleachers behind the president, and when he gets done with his remarks and sits down at a desk to sign the order, he says, "Why don't you all gather around?" And all these little girls just mob him and are standing all around him as he signed the executive order. It was a great celebration and a happy day. And the list goes on and on. Wyoming is going to enjoy the opportunity to be part of this great golden age, and we can help President Trump in that regard. Now, the Senate's role, of course, is to confirm President Trump's nominees, and we've been moving as fast as the Senate rules will allow us to. Now, in the Senate, the rules are designed to protect the minority party. So they are able to slow things down and use 30 hours between when one nominee is considered and the next. And they've been doing that. And so we've been staying and working weekends. So if those 30 hours come up in the middle of the night, if they come up on a weekend, we are there to vote and move on to keep things moving for the president. And because of that, Democrats are starting to realize that it might behoove them to allow us to vote during daylight hours and perhaps during the week. So we are moving along. I have invited 3 of the cabinet nominees to Wyoming this year. One is our new transportation secretary, Sean Duffy. Obviously, we're moving into surface transportation issues that need our attention. It is our lifeline across Wyoming. So Sean Duffy hopefully will be visiting us. He had a baptism by fire. He was sworn into his job, and 4 hours later, the planes and the helicopter collided over the Potomac. So he has been inundated with the problems of air traffic control and other matters in the U.S. since that time. But hopefully he'll be able to join us this summer. I've invited Lee Zeldin, the new director of the EPA. Obviously, these are important issues to us. And on the Environment and Public Works Committee, I chair the subcommittee that's working on power. So the former administration's Clean Power Plan 2.0 can be dropped in File 13 and revamped in a way that allows America to have clean and abundant energy and not just shut it down. And I've also invited Robert F. Kennedy Jr. To be with us. As some of you may know, RFK hunts in Sweetwater County. And so I have invited him, if he gets a chance, to join his hunting buddies in Eden, Wyoming, to get together for a health roundtable in Rock Springs. And we're planning it already in hopes that he is able to join us. What this does is give Wyoming a chance to have our issues be front and center. We can explain rural healthcare, frontier healthcare from our perspective. We can explain lack of permitting clarity from our perspective. We can explain how electric vehicles are not paying any taxes to the roads in this country. It's all being borne by liquid fuels, and we need to change that as we move forward with a highway bill. All of these issues are within my committee jurisdictions, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you to bring about a new golden age for Wyoming as we do it in Washington as well. It feels so different. I can't even describe how different it feels in Washington. And it's happy, and it's active, and it's moving forward at a pace none of us have ever seen. But it's going to make for a better America. If you're watching network television, you're not seeing and hearing what Elon Musk is actually doing to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse. U.S. We all want to be generous in the way we support our fellow man around the world with food, clothing, shelter, disease prevention. But we don't want it to go to fund Sesame Street programs in Iraq, in DEI in Sri Lanka, in explaining gender norms and disparities in Africa or South America. That's where the money was going. This had become a rogue agency. So we're pulling it under Marco Rubio, who, by the way, is going to be fabulous. Of course, he is a Cuban-American, speaks fluent Spanish, was immediately dispatched to Panama to help address our concerns about Chinese aggression in Panama. We were paying $1 million a ship to bring our ships through the Panama Canal. And this is a canal we built and that we gave to the Panamanian people. That's going to change. It is astonishing what President Trump is doing for this country. We're in a new blessed age, and I intend to work with you and with the president to bring it about as quickly as we can. I want to tell you another thing. I served 12 years in this body, and my first year was 1979. I was a freshman with Charlie Scott. I served on the House Judiciary Committee, and Ellen Crowley was the chairman of that committee at the time. We went through bills page by page. And I learned how to read legislation and amend it in real time with real people's thoughts and real people's input, your input. It never happens that way in Washington. You know how many bills we marked up in the Banking Committee in Congress in the last 4 years? None. 4 years. So I get to chair this new subcommittee in the Banking Committee on digital assets. We're marking up a bill next week on stablecoins, much of which I learned from you because Wyoming was the first of its kind in working with digital assets. And we're going through that bill with our subcommittee page by page. I learned that from you. This is a superior legislative body. And I don't know how much you recognize it. I know I tell you that every year, but you might think it's gratuitous. It's not gratuitous, it's true. So I want to applaud you, Mr. Speaker, for blessing our state and its people with providing true representation, not substituting your judgment for theirs, but listening to them and truly being a mirror of this special place. And I want to thank you for serving in the Wyoming legislature. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Lummus, for your words and for all of your work in Washington on our behalf. We look forward to what Wyoming has in store with the new administration and your involvement in that and the support that we can find through you and the representation we have with you with our new administration. It looks good for Wyoming, and when it looks good for Wyoming, it looks good for America. So thank you, ma'am, for all of your efforts. We appreciate your words and look forward to working with you down the road. Have a safe trip. Body, we need the Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 13th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Posey and Jarvis.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Members, we have another opportunity to be able to work with somebody here this morning. Is this President Biteman? This is it. Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure here we get it read correctly. Well, this morning, it is with great pride we welcome Becky Fournier, the head cross-country coach at East High School, and honor Maggie Madsen, a sophomore at Cheyenne East High School. Maggie was awarded the prestigious Wyoming Gatorade Player of the Year for cross-country. She has had an outstanding season, winning the Wyoming 4A State Cross-Country Championship by 23 seconds. Ow. Maggie remained undefeated against any runner from Wyoming and ran the fastest 5K time of the year by a Wyoming athlete. Maggie's excellence extends beyond athletics. She ranks third in her class of 364 students and is passionate about math. She is the daughter of Wendy and Mark Madsen. Wendy is the special project manager for here at LSO. Representatives, please join me in welcoming Coach Fournier and Maggie to the House.
Mr. Speaker, Wyoming State Representatives, thank you for that, and thank you for this opportunity to celebrate Maggie Madsen today. It's an incredible honor. I also want to thank the administrators at East High School, some of whom were here today, and of course my fellow coaches in cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track who support Maggie and me in so many ways. I also want to thank the Gatorade Player of the Year Selection Committee for recognizing Maggie's efforts and accomplishments in the field, in her academics, and in her community. And finally, I want to thank Maggie's family for their love and commitment to our entire program. I like to tell people that the two pillars of our cross-country program are grit and gratitude. For me, grit is the intentional practice of welcoming challenges, embracing hard work, and pushing into the fear of the unknown. Maggie chooses to do these things every single day in all areas of her life. Not just to win at sports, but to strive to be the best version of herself and maximize her talents. She works incredibly hard at practice, always executing to the best of her ability. She's always trying to improve as a runner and is willing to continuously push herself and her teammates to do things they didn't know they could do. That work ethic has led to incredible gains in her performance and confidence over the past year. Not only did she win the 4A State Cross Country Championship title this fall, she went on to finish 7th and earn all region honors at Nike Cross Country Northwest Regionals, competing against the best runners from Oregon, Washington, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Hawaii, and Alaska. And last year as a freshman, she was also the indoor track 4A state champion in 3 different events, the 800, the 1600, and the 3200 meter runs. She also placed 2nd in the 4A outdoor state track meet in 2, and already this indoor season, Maggie leads the state in the 3 distance events, has set school records in the 1600 and 3200 meter runs, and ranks in the top 25 in the nation in both of those events. Yeah. Her grit also serves her well in the classroom. She carries a 4.11 weighted GPA and takes honors in AP classes. When I arrive at practice, Maggie often has her schoolwork spread all around her, and she's putting finishing touches on assignments or taking online quizzes. She uses all of the time available to her to make sure that she's excelling in school, and often verbalizes that her academic performance is her biggest priority in life. Her math teacher, Mr. Josh Anderson, said it best in his recommendation letter for the Gatorade Player of the Year when he said, quote, "No student puts in more effort to everything than Maggie." And then we get on to gratitude, the quality of being thankful and the readiness to return kindness. On the start line of every race, I ask our athletes what they are thankful for, and Maggie's answers always vary. She shows gratitude for her coaches, for her teammates, her friends, and her family, for her opportunities and her abilities, and sometimes just for nice weather or a good night's sleep. Even more importantly, she spreads kindness through her community. She serves on the City of Cheyenne Mayor's Youth Council, actively participating in and learning about local government. She is a junior coach for the Cheyenne Girls on the Run program, empowering young girls to recognize their inner strength and confidence through physical activity. Maggie has participated in Cheyenne Greenway cleanups and is partnered with Needs Incorporated to raise sponsorship money for their fundraiser 5K. She's also volunteered with the City of Cheyenne Youth Day of Giving, Cheyenne Botanic Gardens, the Capital Cities Track Series, and Friday Food Bags. As you can see, Maggie is an extraordinary young woman who is so deserving of all of the recognition that she's received. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce her to you. And now I'm going to let her say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, Maggie Madsen.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Mr. Speaker and Wyoming State Representatives, I want to start by thanking you all for your service to the state of Wyoming. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be recognized here today. I'm beyond grateful for my coaches, for all their support, for Becky, for always giving me advice and empowering me and being there on days when I achieve what I want, and also being there when I don't meet my goals and helping me push to keep striving for them. I'm so grateful for all of my other coaches and everything they have done throughout my athletic journey. And I'm so thankful for my family as well and all their support, being at every meet and being there to cheer me on. I also want to give recognition to the Girls on the Run program. It's a program in Wyoming that was where I started my passion for running. It not only helps girls achieve goals in running, but also strive to build up their mentality and physicality by helping them boost confidence in themselves, and also helping them support others and encouraging others, which is a really important aspect of running. I also think that without my coaches and without my teammates and my teachers and my family, I wouldn't be able to achieve my goals, because they give me so much motivation and show me what's most important in life. And so I'm so thankful for all of that. Thank you.
Representative Brown, you have a privilege before somebody escapes, you said?
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, even though this is my hometown, it's a pretty rare occurrence that I'll get a constituent down here to come watch us. Even though it's about 10 minutes away from my district here, it's a pretty rare occurrence. But today's a little more special. We have up back in the West Gallery, quite possibly one of the greatest influences of my life. And I mean this sincerely. Coach Gallegos is up here in the back, and he's back here as he has been videotaping this whole situation with Maggie. Coach Gallegos has been a teacher for I don't know how many years, but he is quite possibly one of the most influential people that has ever walked this earth for me and for many, many students out there. He reaches deep. He knows exactly what it takes to teach kids, and he knows exactly what it means to coach these kids and everything that it means for life. I cannot thank him enough for putting up with our antics as kids in his class. We put Ambisol on our lips and had numb lips for his health class. And we hit his chair multiple times. I mean, we did everything we could, and he still loved us. I think Coach Gallegos is probably one of those people that we have to remember when it comes time to these discussions about public education and what it means to have these people influence our lives. Coach, thank you for being here, and I love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach, for being here and for your influence. And I'm assuming you don't give singing lessons, so that was the only thing that you probably weren't able to fix with Mr. Brown. We do have somebody else here that has actually got a birthday today. I don't know if she wants us to recognize that, but Chairman Rachel Williams is having a birthday today. So if you guys would all please rise just briefly here. Go ahead, get rid of a little bit of phlegm, whatever's left of the influenza, and then if the golden pipes would find a place to... There you go, get it ready. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rachel. Happy birthday to you.
Representative Brown, that one you hit at the end, I swear could sterilize cats for 3 city blocks. I'm not kidding you. That is fantastic. I don't, just use it sparingly though, thank you. Representative Lloyd Larson, please.
Mr. Chairman, please, privilege if I may.
Yes, sir, you may.
Mr. Speaker, it was fun to have that little Madsen girl, Miss Madsen, up there and see her accomplishments. But those of us that know her mother, our LSO staff, Wendy, know that that nut didn't fall far from the tree. She comes from an amazing family, and we're lucky to have Wendy on our staff. But Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, did you know that today Wyoming 211 is going to provide our lunch for us? And 211, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit organization that serves the whole state in helping people to give them direction to services that might be available to them, public health or legal, just gives them direction on where they go. Call 211, and today they're going to be a resource for us at lunch, so please join them.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Appreciate the heads up on that. Any other members? Were there any other privileges? I don't believe. Yep, Representative Chairman Winter, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my good wife, up here in the north gallery. Unlike, she came down for Valentine's Day, thank goodness, but unlike what Representative Strzok was able to do the other day, she was not able to bring any one of our 36 grandchildren with her, but anyway.
Ms. Winter, welcome to the House, and thank you for allowing us to be able to be entertained by your husband. We appreciate his influence on the floor, and we thank you for letting us enjoy him a little bit and share him for a little bit. So, yeah, I could not help but think when I was reading the achievements of Miss Madsen that is not somebody I would want to take into Grizzly Country with me, because if that girl would be so far gone and I would so not be able to keep up, it would just not even be funny. 23 seconds ahead of the next and second place. That is just remarkable. So what an achievement and what an amazing young lady. So with that in mind, we're moving, no messages from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Please.
And I know we've had a lot, guys, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on little Christian, our young man from Goshen County. He is, they feel he's in a place of stability. Today they will be removing the chest drains. Tomorrow they're going to try to remove the ventilator. He did do 30 minutes on his own, but his oxygen levels started depleting at that point, so they put him back on ventilator. They are concerned about the head trauma. So as we continue to pray, we can pray in that realm. They do not know yet if there's been any brain damage that's been caused by this. But what they'll do is once they remove ventilator and he is stable off of ventilator, they will move forward with surgery to reconstruct his jaw and some facial work. So anyways, continue to pray. Obviously, they're not out of the woods, but when they diverted a Flight for Life to Scottsbluff just 2 days ago, we did not know if we'd even be here having this conversation right now. So God is good, and we know that. We know that He's got OEM parts on hand and that He can help in ways that obviously doctors can't. And so just continue to lift up Christian and this family in prayer, and as they walk through this, there's obviously a long road ahead of recovery, but again, it's good reports. So thank you, guys.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple other things. We need to get kind of some housekeeping things to get taken care of. If I can get back to my sticky note, the enrolled 69, Senate File 69 that we worked on yesterday will be in your mailboxes if it's not already there. It was shortly a moment ago, but you will be able to go get that and take a look at that Senate file. Also, we have somebody else that has come and has shared some time with us, and then she went away, and then she told us that she may be back. Well, she did. She came back. And that is our intern, the Miss Heidi Shade. And so she has prepared some remarks for us because, believe it or not, it's Friday and she will be leaving us. So if Miss Shade, if you would please be willing to come and address the body, we would love to be able to see you off and tell you thanks for all your efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought I got out of a speech there for a second, but.
We don't do that to people. We will drag you out and make you do this for everybody. So we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you already know, this is not my first time standing at this podium and given the opportunity to speak to you. To be welcomed back a second time has me wondering one of two things. Either the last time I was here I did something right, or you just needed someone to come back and guard the snacks from Rick. Okay, maybe not, but it's clear that my charm and wit were missed. On a serious note, I am honored to stand before you once again. My time here has been nothing short of extraordinary. I've had the chance to witness the wheels of democracy in action and learn from some of the most committed and dedicated people of Wyoming. Your commitment to serving the state is truly inspiring, and I'm grateful to be a part of this remarkable opportunity, even if it was just a brief period. Now, I have a lot of people I want to thank, so I'll try to keep this brief because I know you have a lot to get done. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge and thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for allowing me to even be here and for putting such amazing people in my life like you. I also want to thank Speaker Nyman. I also want to thank Speaker Nyman for the wonderful message he gave at the Governor's Prayer Breakfast. If you weren't there, it truly was a touching, motivating message, so thank you for that. I also want to thank my host mom, Carrie Klein. I don't know if she's in here, but she welcomed me into her home not only once, but twice, so I'm very appreciative of that. Representative Lawley, you're just truly amazing. You've always been in my back corner supporting me, and I just love you so much. Let's see. Representative Lucas, I want to thank you for reaching out to me and emailing me updates on the session and on bills. I really do appreciate that. Representative Weber, thank you for the amazing pep talks, girl talks, and just the thoughtful conversations. The way you spoke about your constituents really stood out to me. It's obvious that you care not only about the people in your district, but of the people of Wyoming. Representative Sherwood, thank you for the bow. I love that on Wednesdays we wear pink. It just makes it so much more fun. Representative Haroldson, I want to thank you for just being truly amazing. You're a very dedicated, passionate individual. You're very personable, and you have a sense of humor, which just made my week even more enjoyable, and I've learned a lot from you. I want to thank all of the representatives from Fremont County, so Representatives Pepper Ottman, Jewel Gugamas, Ivan Posey, and my representative Lloyd Larson for your unwavering support and just for taking an interest in my educational and future career goals. And I would like to point out that Representatives Clauston and Representative Davis had the best candy stashes on their desks. Not that I would know, but they're pretty good. Now, I really wish that I could thank each and every person who's had an impact on me by name. We'd be here all day, and I've already taken quite a bit of time. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone sitting before me for your invaluable guidance and support. Your mentorship has given me a deeper appreciation for the intricacies of governance and the importance of thoughtful decision-making. Returning for a second week has reinforced my belief in public service and the difference that each of us can make. I leave here with renewed enthusiasm, a greater sense of purpose, ready to take on whatever challenges lie ahead. And who knows, maybe someday in the future, I'll be back here, not as a page, but as a representative myself.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. We appreciate all of your efforts as well, and we looked forward to you being able, we didn't know for sure if you were going to get to be able to come back and be with us, but we were very thankful when we heard that you were going to be able to come back and be involved. Having someone like you among us and helping and being involved in the process is a real blessing to all of us, and it gives us great hope and encouragement to the future of our state and the young people that are in it. And we look forward to all that you're going to do in your life moving ahead. And if you have a chance to come back and see us again, then please, by all means, know that the door is open, and we would relish the opportunity to be able to share some time with you again. So blessings on you as you travel and you go from here, and have a wonderful, rich life. And Wyoming is better because of people like you. And so we thank you for being here and all of your efforts. So thank you. You are the clappingest bunch of human beings I've ever seen. I'll tell you what. We are at that order of business of the Senate files on first reading. The first Senate file for our consideration is Senate file number 169.
Senate File 169, sponsored by Senator Hicks.
First reading of the bill.
Strategic Investments and Property Projects Account Repeal.
Senate file 169 will be assigned to our committee number 2, appropriations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 61.
Senate File 61, sponsored by Senator Case.
First reading of the bill.
Pollution Control, Property Tax Exemption, Applicability.
Senate file 61 will be assigned to our committee number 3, revenue. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 126.
Senate File 126, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss.
First reading of the bill.
Establishment of K through 8 Public Lab School.
Senate file 126 will be assigned to our committee number 4, education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 162.
Senate File 162, sponsored by Senator Scott.
First reading of the bill.
Education Block Grant Model Amendments.
Senate file 162 will also be assigned to committee number 4, education. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 43.
Senate File 43, sponsored by Agriculture.
First reading of the bill.
Temporary Water Use Agreements Amendments.
Senate file 43 will be assigned to our committee number 5, agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 121.
Senate File 121, sponsored by Senator Boner.
First reading of the bill.
Rodeo License Plate.
Senate file 121 will be assigned to committee number 5, agriculture. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file number 4.
Senate File 4, sponsored by Travel.
First reading of the bill.
State Park Peace Officers, Definition and Scope of Authority.
Senate file 4 will be assigned to our committee number 6, travel. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 164.
Senate File 164, sponsored by Senator Driscoll.
First reading of the bill.
Parimutuel Rodeo Definitions.
Senate file 164 will go to number 6, travel. Next Senate file for our consideration, 179.
Senate File 179, sponsored by Senator Barlow.
First reading of the bill.
Sage Grouse Compensatory Mitigation Amendments.
Senate file 179 will be assigned to committee number 6, travel. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 51.
Senate File 51, sponsored by Corporations.
First reading of the bill.
Wyoming Telecommunications Act revisions.
Senate file 51 will be assigned to our committee number 7, corporations. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 146.
Senate File 146, sponsored by Senator Boner.
First reading of the bill.
Consumer Rental Purchase Agreement Act amendments.
Senate file 146 will be assigned to committee number 8, transportation. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 132.
Senate File 132, sponsored by Senator Jones.
First reading of the bill.
Protecting critical infrastructure and systems from drones.
Senate file 132 will be assigned to our committee number 9, minerals. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 175.
Senate File 175, sponsored by Senator Kolb.
First reading of the bill.
Unemployment insurance coverage, period, and reporting.
Senate file 175 will be assigned to our committee number 10, labor. And that concludes our introductions. Reports from standing committees.
Senate File 11, sponsored by Judiciary, use of fraudulent documents to wrongfully possess property, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 11 engrossed, use of fraudulent documents to wrongfully possess property, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Chairman, Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 75, sponsored by Senator Case, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property, an act relating to county coroners. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 75 engrossed, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger, Yen. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman. Senate File 114, sponsored by Senator Landon. Missing Persons Reporting Requirement, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 114 engrossed, Missing Persons Reporting Requirement, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 130, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss. Emergency Assistance to Community Mental Health Services, an act relating to civil procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 130, Emergency Assistance Immunity, Mental Health Services, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger, Yin. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman. Senate File 143, sponsored by Senator Nethercott. Public monies, deposits, and credit unions, an act relating to public funds. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 143, Public monies, deposits, and credit unions, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Excused, Representative Riggins. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. A couple other announcements. I'll do this again. The meeting notices for Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, are due by 2 p.m. today. So if you have meeting notices that you're going to want to put out that are going to be taken care of on Tuesday, they must be done by 2 p.m. today. So with that, without anything else that I can see, we will move on to bills on second reading. We are at that order of business of bills on second reading. The first bill for our consideration will be Senate File 6.
Senate File 6, sponsored by Judiciary, Residential Property, Removal of Unlawful Occupant, an act relating to civil procedure.
We have amendments. One amendment from Representative J.T. Larson. Representative Larson's getting his ducks in a row and headed for a mic, so we will progress here in seconds. Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry about that. Just getting myself organized this morning. Members, I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 6 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, actually earlier last year in the summer, I had a constituent who is a landlord reach out to me, and they had the sheriff's office issue and attempt to issue an eviction notice to the tenant, and the tenant managed to always somehow avoid the sheriff. When the sheriff showed up, they figured out their schedule or whatever, but the sheriff was never able to actually issue an eviction notice. So under our current laws, they technically weren't issued that, so they couldn't be evicted. They weren't handed the document. And so what this tries to do is say, if the sheriff has attempted twice to issue an eviction notice and the tenant fails to receive that, then under this law would become an unauthorized person on that property. It's trying to help our landlords deal with tenants who are not wanting to comply with an eviction notice, and ask for your aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Washit, Chairman Washit, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to ask you to resist this amendment. Committee number 1 over the interim worked this bill very carefully, and we strove to clearly distinguish this bill from the existing body of law that deals with landlords and tenants. If we muddy the water and introduce this amendment into the bill, I don't think we help the bill. And I think we just confound the conversation. Now, that said, in the context of a squatter situation, which is different than a landlord-tenant situation, if perhaps during one of these encounters, the sheriff is able to come in contact with someone who needs to be served on the civil arena of the landlord-tenant law, can certainly do that. Nothing in this law would preclude that. But this bill was carefully structured to deal with a unique case of squatters and move that circumstance into the criminal code and avoid disrupting decades of established case law dealing with landlords and tenants. So I understand your constituents' desire. We heard that over and over, and there were some early attempts to meld the two eviction process with the criminal process contained in this law. We ultimately abandoned that approach to keep this clean and specific to squatters as opposed to tenants. Please resist the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Washington. Representative Chestik, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also am on and against the amendment. I understand the frustration when a defendant tries to duck service. That happens sometimes, but there are many, many legitimate reasons why somebody might not be home when the sheriff happens to show up. Maybe they're at work, maybe they're on vacation. So the fact that they're not home when the sheriff chooses to knock on the door does not necessarily mean that they're ducking service. So I resist the amendment on that grounds. There's also no limitation as to how long between attempts. So the sheriff knocks the door at 9 a.m., comes back at 3 p.m. Both times the person's not there. Maybe they're at work at that time, but that would be 2 times that would satisfy this requirement, and I therefore think it's way too broad, and I would urge a no vote on the amendment.
Any other members for their first time? None? Second time? Back to the bringer. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, on and in favor of the amendment. Members, when a tenant is intentionally trying to avoid service of a eviction notice, in my opinion, they then become a squatter. The landlord no longer wants that tenant on that property, and they are avoiding service. So I think this is just a way for us to help protect the property rights of the landowner, and I encourage an aye vote.
Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate file number 6. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has not been adopted. Senate file number 6 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 13.
Senate File 13, sponsored by Education, Reading Assessment and Intervention Amendments, an act relating to reading assessment and intervention.
We have amendments. Representative Jarvis, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I came to my lucky podium. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 13. I spent a lot of time going over it yesterday, so I won't spend a lot of time doing that today. The couple things that I said that we would get changed, that would get put in here, are put in here, and have worked with the chair of the Committee of Knowledge. And I hope that this is now a favorable amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Any members? Representative Chairman Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Coincidentally, that's also my lucky podium, but I spent the morning working on this with the WDE, and they think it clarifies the language, so vote aye.
Representative Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly appreciative of having somebody else in this body that not only is passionate about literacy, but actually has the knowledge and the understanding and the experience to actually put it into practice, into law. This amendment hits literally exactly what we've been trying to do for the past 3 to 4 years to really get the literacy standards in order. And frankly, I was trying to find another horse to put my bill in, and this, I don't even have to do a bill because this amendment actually does exactly what I've been trying to do for a little while. So hands down, one of the best amendments to the literacy statutes that we have, and I would highly encourage an aye vote.
Any other members for their first time? Seeing none, second time? Back to the bringer. Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please vote aye.
Members, you're being asked to vote on second reading amendment number 1, Senate File 13. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Senate File 13, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Can't hardly get the words out of my mouth here. Okay. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 15.
Senate File 15, sponsored by Minerals, Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, an act relating to oil and gas.
Senate File 15, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 16.
Senate File 16, sponsored by Minerals, Industrial Siting, Tribal Notification, an act relating to industrial development and siting.
Senate File 16, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 20.
Senate File 20, sponsored by Minerals, Oil and Gas Bonding, Options and Bonding Pools, an act relating to oil and gas.
Senate File 20, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, number 23.
Senate File 23, sponsored by Labor, Handicap Placards, Health Care Providers Approval, an act relating to motor vehicles.
Senate File 23, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read the third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 25.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Transportation, Electronic Lien and Title System, an act relating to motor vehicles.
Senate File 25, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 40.
Senate File 40, sponsored by Appropriations, Zoning Protest Petition Amendments, an act relating to cities and towns.
Okay, we have amendments to Senate File 40. First amendment is being brought by, man, you killed some trees on this one. Senate File Sherwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 40 and ask you for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, this amendment gives our cities and towns the tools to address unsafe and abandoned buildings. It creates a property tax reduction as an incentive to bring nuisance buildings up to code. And I will walk you through the amendment if you haven't had a chance to read it. On page 1, line 24A starts, this outlines the criteria for a city or a town to designate a property within city limits as abandoned or nuisance if it is vacant for more than 6 months, if it is neglected or deteriorating, and it provides definitions. It also limits the number of buildings a city or a town can declare as abandoned or nuisance based on the size of the community. So if a community is less than 15,000 residents, there can be no more than 3 buildings designated at the same time. If it is not more than 50,000 residents, there is a cap of 6. If it is 50,000 or larger, there is a limitation of no more than 10 at the same time. So that puts some guardrails on the ability to designate the buildings. B, which is on line 43, page 1 and continues. This is criteria that outlines how to determine if a building is abandoned. So the community shall consider whether an unreasonable or unlawful use or condition of the property has resulted or may result in an economic or physical injury to the neighboring property owner or is endangering the life, health, or safety of the community. It continues on, so C, which is on line 10, page 2. If the owner of the property decides to have the building demolished, so they agree, they don't want to mess with it, they're just going to remove the building, within 2 years of the designation, they can receive a property tax credit in the form of 50% of their expenses. However, and this is incentive-based, if they decide to bring the building up to code and get it ready for a new use, which is an economic advantage to the community, they can receive a property tax credit that is 100% of their expenses that they spent to bring that building up to code. Say that they're like, I don't want to mess with this at all, I'm going to sell it. The new owner still gets that incentive, but they get a 5-year period to either demo the building or bring it up to code, and then they can get 100% of their expenses in the form of a property tax credit. So the expenses have to be documented, shared with, and approved by the city or town before that tax credit can be utilized. Moving on to page 3 of the amendment, this outlines the powers of the city or town within this process in terms of abatement costs. So say if the owner is like, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to sell it, I don't want to deal with it, the local community can go in and fix the nuisance, fix the health crisis, fix the danger, and then they can put a lien on there, but the lien, they're second in line to the lien. So if the bank has a loan in place on the building, which I don't know how many abandoned properties actually have active, liens on them or money owed, the bank is still in the first position, the community is in the second position. And that really is the summary. On page 4 of the amendment, it talks about how that person can utilize that property tax credit or that reduction. They have to use it within a 10-year period on the taxes. So the concept here is that if you have an abandoned property, there's really nothing on the books that allows our local government to address something when somebody has just walked away and this building is creating harms for our communities. I want you to visualize this, like on your main streets, coming into your communities, how many buildings do we have that are just sitting there empty and they're eyesores and they're dangerous? So again, this is the carrot, this is the incentive, and this is the incentive to correct that problem in the form of a property tax credit. So in no way does that property owner have to abandon their property rights. This is not a taking. This is incentivizing the use of this property within our city and town statutes. And with that, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Alleman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This looks to me like a community, a local problem. There are so many communities throughout this state that cannot afford to tear down the structure that is the problem. The owners walk away from them, they go to the tax sale, but still there is no money in these cities to tear it down. I think each city ought to look at this on their own and have their own regulations for demolishing these abandoned buildings because the owners aren't. They're gone. Thank you.
Representative Bear, for your first time. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So yesterday we debated the merits of not allowing local communities to have mitigation fees. And I see this amendment as a way around that. It was pretty clear the body approved of, even those who were opposed to the amendment, agreed with the purpose of that amendment yesterday. So I would resist this amendment. I feel like it's trying to undo our good work from yesterday.
Representative Yin, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, this amendment doesn't touch that language at all. That language is still in the bill, it's still there. Members, this is language that has been vetted in the public over the course of 2 years. It just never got a hearing this time around. This language actually came out of a committee bill. So it's one where our towns and counties have seen it, Developers have seen it. This is a bill that gives the powers that I think the representative from Natrona County is actually asking for. Cities and towns don't have the ability to deal with those buildings right now. They actually don't have any power to do anything. This at least gives them an incentive. They can offer that property tax credit for a private landowner to actually do something with their land, their building, and make the cities and towns in Wyoming better. This is a bill that helps if you know a community in your district that has abandoned buildings, nuisance buildings, and you know it could use some work. This is a good way, doesn't cost the state anything, to make it possible for your cities and towns to make their communities better. So sounds good to me.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? Representative Thayer, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this body is asking for locality, having local tools, and this bill would do that. These abandoned buildings are reducing our local tax revenues, which will help our municipalities and local governments. It'll take care of safety issues we have in our communities. And also, I know that we locally have had problems where decreased property values when there is a building that is abandoned or nuisance. So I am on and for this amendment to give our local communities a tool.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? No other members? Second time? Second time, none. Back to the bringer. Representative Sherwood, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your consideration. And I should say that this concept was brought by a member of the House 6 years ago. So this has been in the public world for debate and consumption for 6 years. And yes, it wasn't a committee bill that ran out of time and so died in this House, but this is something that every single community I have been to is asking for. Our cities and towns' hands are tied when there is a nuisance building that is dangerous. They have no recourse to address it. This bill does that in a way that provides an incentive to the property owner. So it's not on the backs of our local government to deal with this. We can do this collaboratively with the private property owner to make our buildings better, to get them ready for new businesses, and to prepare them for economic growth. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File number 40. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Amendment has not been adopted, 23 to 32. Next amendment for our consideration to Senate File 40, number 2, Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move second reading number 2 to Senate File 40 and ask for your favorable consideration. So members, what we have here is another tool in the toolbox to help housing development in our state. So this is about a tool called tax increment financing. And tax increment financing, members, is a way to incentivize development in a specific area. And so this amendment provides that tool specifically for housing. Housing cost is a big problem in a lot of our communities. But there was one community especially that was pushing for this language. And so that ended up in a committee bill. Again, a committee bill that had public hearings, public debated it. We had everyone agree that this is a good tool that we could use in our toolbox. It just didn't end up seeing the light of day within our time frame in committee. But the tool is definitely one where we could use it to build housing in communities like the one that we're in today. If any other members would like to speak, but I'm happy to answer any questions, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Bear, for your first time. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would resist this amendment as well. I think the language that's added is far, far too expansive, going far afield of where this body would be willing to go. So on and against the amendment.
Representative Geringer, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I actually, the language of this amendment is something I was going to support when it was assigned to the committee, but we didn't quite make it through the process, so didn't get to speak to it. I have a long version of the comments and a short version of the comments that I prepared for that particular meeting. I'll take you through it, just slightly reduced. I think this is an issue that really does need some consideration in this body. Wyoming is facing a workforce housing shortage. We've heard it through the business folks that have been discussing it, our communities that have been discussing it. It has impacts wide-ranging impacts that we've been having to deal with. And I assume all of you have heard from business, industry, and advocates about it. It really provides a practical solution by updating some existing language in tax increment financing to help address things. Right now, the TIF is limited to blighted areas, but cities are often hesitant to use that designation due to legal and political concerns. And so the bill actually removes a roadblock that allows TIF to be used where affordable housing, workforce housing is needed, not just in those blighted areas. So prior to being the city engineers, I mentioned, or public works director and city engineer, and before all that, I was a developer. And I've worked in housing after the public sector as well. When I was, let's see, about 20 years ago, I was the director of land development for a developer that was building workforce housing actually all across the state. We were looking for ways to reduce financial hurdles and explored the use of the TIF in Stone Springs, we'll say, and the Shy City that we're living in or working in here, and other places. So the biggest challenges we had at that time was getting the city leaders to go through with that blight designation. So they didn't want to acknowledge that the area was blighted, nor inadvertently include properties that may not actually be blighted and potentially ruin the value of those properties. So this would have really been a good tool to have back then. Let me briefly explain kind of the nuts and bolts of how somebody that's building housing could actually use this tool. So with the TIF, the city and the developer worked together to create a TIF district in an area where housing is needed. So the city then approves that TIF district and the baseline tax is established. The district then will capture future increases in property tax revenue generated by the new development. The developer builds the project using funds provided by the city for critical infrastructure, so the roads, utilities, water, and sewer systems. That reduces the upfront financial burden, making it feasible to build homes that are affordable for middle-income workers. It's a tool that's already there. It's already in statute. It's already able to be used, but only in blight situations. And then as homes and apartments are completed and occupied, property values rise and generate new property tax revenue. So the incremental tax increase is used to repay the infrastructure costs instead of pulling money from existing taxpayers. So this approach really is kind of an interesting tool that uses growth to pay for growth. So it's not like an exaction fee. It's not a developer impact fee. It's actually kind of a unique process to be able to help with the costs of development. It's not a financial boon to the developer. It's actually something that helps the city create workforce housing using private tools. It's, in a nutshell, I guess it's just kind of a win-win situation. It removes unnecessary barriers and allows municipalities to use the TIF where housing is needed most, not just in the areas where they label it as blighted. And at the end of the day, we do need to provide solutions for our housing. The concerns that I keep hearing, and I'm sure that you folks have too, about how businesses need to grow, but there's not the housing stock available. This is just a tool. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's just one more little thing that we can use to help ensure that families can afford to live where they work. So this bill kind of helps to get us there. This amendment really is what helps to get us there. And so I think it's a good thing to talk about. We can have the discussion about it. I'd love to hear the thoughts, the concerns, with this kind of process, and whether or not it might be something that we could use. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Kelly, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment. The good representative gave a very accurate and comprehensive explanation of a tax increment finance district, how it's supposed to work in theory. History has shown us some great sounding theories don't work out as planned when implemented. I was not blessed to live my entire life in this great state. I came from a state that is rich in tax increment finance districts and also rich in blighted areas, gentrification, and the people who need the housing most getting pushed out of their neighborhoods. I resist anything that expands the use of a TIF just because of its historical effects, regardless of its noble intentions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Wiley, for your first time, sir.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. This is an issue that we work through interim. I heard a lot of communities across the state that are struggling, with affordable housing and housing in general, right? Everybody's behind on this curve. And this was one of the things that kept coming up over and over and over again. This can help us. My community specifically, we have large areas that are already blighted. Nobody wants to invest in them. Costs too much to do new, costs too much to demo. So you get these huge areas that just have, rundown structures. And this is one of the things that you can do to try to get the private industry to say, hey, okay, we can invest here large sums of money, move the community forward, give answers to solutions on and for.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harshman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, this is, I think, a really nice amendment, and it does no harm to the bill, and it gives one more tool. The toolbox won't be used by everybody, but there are certain situations in the state it's nice to have this tool. And then I'd just say lastly, Mr. Speaker, it's always good to put a little amendment on one of those blue bills so we can talk about it some more. And I know we put one on yesterday, but that's our job, keep making these little blue bills better as they cross over. So this one will certainly make this bill better. Thank you.
Any other members? First time. Representative Ottman, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bringer of this had said that they would be glad to explain some of this. One of my concerns with the TIF was the way in which it is implemented and then the follow-up. The way I understand it, and we did look at it in interim committee, and I had done some work on it myself, but the way that it looks is that you take the tax base for a municipality, and that is used for improvements. And so once that is used to pay back for those improvements, the tax base then is at a zero, so it has to be new taxes need to be implemented. And so my concern was about the increase of taxes that would be for people. Almost, it looks as doubling, but as well as to if there was going to be a lot of public comment as well. I know we're all concerned with housing and with blight and with so many things because it is an issue. But I just wonder if this isn't creative and to the point where we're not really sure what the ramifications are going to be. So if somebody could explain that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? First time, seeing no others for their first, Representative Sherwood, thank you.
Thank you,
First time,
Mr.
please.
Speaker. I think the easiest way to understand tax increment finance or a TIF is to think of it as a bond, and to visualize a property in your community that needs some love. Maybe it is generating $100 in property taxes, right? Hardly anything. And private industry comes in, developer comes in and says, I want to give this building some love, and I want to work with the city to reinvest the money that will be generated from the improvement. And so say that developer wants to put in $30 million into this space, into this building that needs some love. All of a sudden, then that's going to generate, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in property tax revenue. So the city can use that incremental increase from that one property. So my property taxes don't go up. My taxes as an individual don't go up. It is just that one property that we're talking about. And that developer agrees that the increase in the value of that property is going to go to fund things like improvement on curb, gutter, road, water, sewer to support that project. And when that bond is paid off, that incremental improvement, that additional generation of property taxes flows to all of the entities like the schools, like the city, like the county, like the special district. So it's a short-term pause, and where that increased revenue goes to, it goes back to paying for that road, curb, gutter, sewer. And when that's paid off, it flows through just as it would today. So think of it as a bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Washut, first time, Chairman Washut.
Just a quick question for the bringer. These properties that need love, are they occupied? Are we displacing people who are hanging on by a thread from low-income properties and then replacing them with nice, well-loved properties that these people can't afford to live in?
Any other members for their first time? Representative Lean, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
First for a second. Representative, any other representatives for their first time? Representative Haraldson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So on and against this amendment, as we did hear this in corporation this last year, one of the concerns that I have is if we look historically, areas that have done this in large quantities or have moved in this direction are now backpedaling off of it because they're realizing that it creates, it's a subsidized system for regenerating land. And at the end of the day, we create a larger tax burden on those individuals in those areas. A lot of times a tax burden that's never fully realized or removed. And so there are areas back east in our country that have done this, that are now backpedaling off of this, saying this isn't working, this isn't where we want to go or the direction we have. Now, I'll be honest with you, we do need to have a very honest and serious question about areas that are not being taken to a place of good standing as far as in our communities. I mean, this is a conversation since I've been here that we've had of how do you take care of buildings that are maybe edge of condemnable or something of that nature. And so I'm not saying we don't have a problem, but I will say this, we can look at history and see that this is not the answer moving forward. Because if as a whole, if it didn't work in one community, it won't work in another. And then there are some very small stories of success in this, but there's many more stories of failure. And so I think that we need to be very honest about the conversation and say, do we want a subsidized building now? And do we want to place in another way a tax burden upon properties or sections of properties that have long-term effect on them? So anyways, on and against.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their first time? First time on the amendment? Okay, going on to second time. Any of those members for their second time? Representative Wiley, for your second time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand when we look back east at some of these metropolitan areas that these TIFs don't work. But I would like to bring the argument that Wyoming has unique problems and unique solutions to these problems. We don't have to worry about a tax base that's not going to be able to pay for it, because largely, if our communities are not shrinking, they're growing. And like I spoke to before, we have this housing shortage. So this is a tool in the toolkit where I could believe that we could have positive outlooks, and you can't skew the statistics with, you know, these blighted large areas back east in these cities that are, you know, have had decades and decades of retraction in their economic growth and stuff. You just can't compare the two. It's apples and oranges.
Representative Kelly, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, this may be the only time I pull out my credentials here. My PhD is in American government and urban politics, and the reason that's relevant is because the American government part of that major was about the theoretical, how things are supposed to work in the system. Urban politics is the reality of how things actually work when implemented and how things are actually done. And I keep hearing about the need for affordable housing. This is not a new problem in America. And Wyoming is an incredibly special place to live. It's why I brought my family here. But we're still people. And people in towns and across the country are human beings just like us, with the same issues, the same desires, and some of the same problems. And the reality is that this type of mechanism, no matter how well-intentioned, the underlying and dominant incentive is for well-connected people to politicians to make sweetheart deals, for developers to get rich, for politicians to point to their newly rejuvenated neighborhoods, and then squeezing out the very people we were supposed to help in the first place. On and against.
Any other members for their second time? Representative Geringer, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really appreciate the dialogue we're having here and the discussion about the concept and really trying to flesh out some of those issues that people are concerned about, because I think that kind of conversation needs to occur. And so I appreciate the bringer of the amendment actually bringing this bill up. I wasn't, obviously this was a committee bill initially, and I wasn't speaking as the sponsor of the bill. I was going to speak as just a proponent. And so really appreciate the ability to have this conversation. And no matter where this goes today, I think the conversation should still continue regarding solutions for our housing problem. And is there anything that we can do, whether it's the main body of this this bill to help, or other issues that we can bring up to help the housing situation. And so really do appreciate all of that. I want to clear up a couple of things that I did here though. So this particular tool is actually taking it out of the realm of the blight. And so we're not talking about the homes that the good representative from the middle of the state was talking about. No, it's not for those blighted areas that somebody may be living in. And that's part of what we're trying to do here, is to say, let's use this, expand this tool in a different sense to be able to provide newer housing, not necessarily in an older area. It could be a new expansion. It could be a new development. This is expanding beyond the concept of those blighted areas. So let me give you a little bit of a scenario here to speak to the questions from the good representative who's not sitting in her chair anymore, about how this actually works. And so let's assume that a newly constructed single-family house has a property tax assessment of $2,000 per year. Okay? Let's then look at a developable or redevelopable piece of property that has an existing tax base on it of $1,000. Okay? So that $1,000 still goes to the county, or through the process. That doesn't change. The tax base does not go to zero. The tax is actually still being paid at that base rate of $1,000. So then somebody comes in, builds a bunch of homes. We'll say they're that example of the $2,000 single-family home, $2,000 property tax single-family home. Now you've been able to take a piece of land, build a number of homes on it, and it expands the value of what's been there. Okay, so the difference between that new value and the old value, that increment, is actually what goes to pay for the cost of development. So you're still getting that base rate, the counties, the schools, the fire districts, all that kind of stuff. They're still getting that base tax. And that base tax may have stayed that way for the next 20 years because of whatever issues with that land. By implementing a program like this, you're able to actually move up the timeline to where you have increased property values, property taxes that are able to pay for the infrastructure. This is not a scheme for rich folks, rich developers to be able to make more money, because their cut still stays the same. They're not the increase, the money that's being used for the infrastructure is paying for the infrastructure. It's not going to the developer's pocket. It's paying for the infrastructure. So then think about it this way too. If any of you have ever bought a new home, what you've paid for in that purchase price is the cost of building the home, the cost of the land underneath it, the cost of the infrastructure to get it there. As a new homeowner in a TIF district, you're still paying for the cost of the house, the cost of the infrastructure, the cost of everything that it took, the land that it took. So this is not a subsidy of a developer. It's not a subsidy of the individual buying the home. All it does is rearrange the financing process and doesn't put the burden on the developer to figure out the financing, and makes it easier to do what they may do best in building the homes. So it takes the financing portion out of the equation, makes it easier to develop the property into building homes for our workforce housing. It is not a subsidy. So again, I really do appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. Obviously, there's some questions, some concerns. No matter which way we go on this today, body, I would love to continue the discussion even offline to talk about how this actually does work and maybe the opportunities to make it even better next time if it doesn't pass. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their second time? Representative Lean for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment. On page 2, lines 5 and 6 of the amendment, there's additional language that goes into blight. And I just want to remind everyone that individuals have the right to develop their property to their own potential. And just because their potential is less than somebody else's doesn't mean that they now get to be driven into that definition of blight. On and against the amendment.
Other members, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just echo the comments about this is not where this conversation ends. Every single one of our communities is struggling with affordable housing, workforce housing, senior housing. How are we going to keep our young people here? How are we going to keep our grandkids here if there's nowhere for them to live? There's nowhere for them to work. How are we going to recruit new businesses in if there's nowhere for their workers to live and raise their families? This is a crisis. So today is not the end of this conversation. I encourage every single one of you to go back to your communities, to visit with your city, to visit with your urban renewal authority, your downtown development authority, whoever it is that is working on this issue, and sit down with curiosity and an open mind and understand that in Wyoming, our tools to address this issue are either broken or non-existent. And here we are bringing solutions to the body. And you may not be ready for that, but it doesn't negate our responsibility to solve this problem.
Any other members for their second time? Representative Harshman, Washut, Ottman, and Haroldson could speak. If Representative Bear, before I take it back to the bringer. Seeing none? Representative Yen.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So to answer the question from the representative from Natrona County, or the concern from the representative from Natrona County that spoke for the second time, so talking about blight, the definition, that new language actually makes it harder to use tax increment financing on blighted areas. So the bill amends what is already an existing tool, tax increment financing. Cities and towns can already use tax increment financing on blighted areas. That change in definition actually tightens it, so it makes it harder to consider something a blighted area unless you have more than one condition. Before, you only had to have one condition, so they could mark a lot of things as blighted. This actually makes it harder to mark things as blighted. To the representative from Natrona County who spoke for the first time, that had the concerns about pushing people out, again, this is expanding an already existing tool. Cities and towns really don't want to use it for blighted areas that much, but they do want to build affordable housing. And so that kind of housing, that workforce housing, is for those low-income folks, for those folks that are the pillars of our community that want to work and live in our community. And so the market is easy for a high-end home, right? Take a plot of land, plop a high-end home on it. That is never going to be used for workforce housing, right? That's going to be used for someone maybe that vacations, depending on the area that you live in the state. But that is more financially feasible. This provides a tool to incentivize a little bit more workforce level housing, housing that can fit that niche that is getting more and more expensive to build every single day. And so that's essentially the goal of the bill, is to make that tool available for these places where we need more workforce in them. Again, appreciate all of the debate. I mean, it's actually a breath of fresh air to get this much debate on this amendment. I was worried that it would be similar to the amendment before it. I'm glad that we actually had debate on the merits of the policy instead of just having someone say, resist this amendment, and then more than 30 people vote no. But with that, I'm going to ask for the ayes and noes, call for the ayes and noes.
We'll need 2 seconds. Representative Haroldson and Representative Provenza. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate file number 40. Chief Clerk, whenever you're prepared, please take the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks, excused. Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clauston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson, excused. Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Repeat? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Repeat? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 22 aye, 37 no, 3 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen not to adopt second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File number 40. Senate File number 40 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I just blessed beyond words today. I get to have yet another mentor of mine, and actually a mentor of my father's as well, joining us on this House floor. Mr. Foy Jolly here is actually a former Senate staff member and retired out from working with the Senate in the 58th legislature, but was also a former Capitol Police Protection Officer, and now currently heads up the Wyoming and High Plains Honor Flight. And in your inboxes, you will find some information, but the speaker was gracious enough to allow Mr. Jolly to come to the floor and address the body really quick to give you guys some information on the High Plains Honor Flight. So if you would please give a warm welcome to Mr. Jolly.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. This was my beat for 29 years and a half, 20 years and 4 months as a state Capitol Police officer. During that time, Rob Geringer's father served in this body, Senator Jim, later the governor. But I served the Herschler, Sullivan, and Geringer administration as a Capitol Police officer, always with one ear on what was happening on the upper floors, and the other on the security of the people. Citizen legislators, Washington, D.C. would be well to see how we operate out here. Senator Barrasso served in the body. Senator Lummus served in both this body with her husband, the late Al Wiederspun, and myself, serving on the Senate staff. I got to know a lot of people. From time to time, I pull out my directory, and I was looking over the one from 1996 the other day. I counted that there were 10 people on both sides of the body who had left us, some more recently. But I would like to see how many people in here are military veterans. Please stand. Be recognized. Thank you. I am a veterans advocate. I served Senator Enzi on his last term for 6 years as his veterans advisor. He called me and told me he was running for his 6th fourth-year term his fourth six-year term, excuse me. And if I would serve as his Veterans Advisor, I said, well, I'm here for you anytime you want to. I started serving you when you ran initially for the Senate, and I'm here at your disposal. I said, now what will that entail? He says, be my eyes and ears and let me know what's happening on base at the VA. Veterans on active duty, their families, retirees, and veterans who have honorably been discharged and their families, reservists and National Guard and Air Guard people. And when I retired from the Air Force in September of '77, I came on board the 31st of August of 1977. I simply had 9 days between uniforms, serving for 40 plus years in a uniform. When I came on staff, I didn't have a clue how to wear civilian clothes because I was always in uniform. So my wife, a fifth generation pioneer from Lander, Fremont County, and I met 51 years ago this August. We've been married 46 years last month. Sunday will be my 85th birthday, and as you can see, when we get old, we start having to use these guys. I took my honor flight the 9th and 10th of September of 2018, and I've been involved ever since. Specifically, what we do is send veterans back from World War II, Korea, Vietnam era, or anyone with a Purple Heart to see the monuments in Washington, D.C. For those of us who served in Vietnam and didn't get welcome home, this is your official welcome home. It's life-changing. I had mine, and I've been involved ever since. I like seeing the veterans go back, and I'm down at the site of the departure in Loveland every time a flight goes out. We're working on 2 flights for this year. I was on the radio talk show the 31st of last month with the president, and you have my letters of introduction on your desk now. I would like to invite anybody that served during that time that have not had an honor flight to apply and go. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a Sunday departure, return on Monday night. They fly out of Loveland International Airport on a charter flight, and there's 180 people on board with support people, full medical staff, and 50 to 60 wheelchairs for the old farts who can't get around, because when you're walking around up there, you get tired. And so if you've not had an honor flight and you'd like to go, and you're in that category, please apply. It doesn't cost you anything except a weekend trip. We have a full complement of medical people and support people on board, and it's a wonderful experience. I would hope that you would do that. I serve as the surgeon for the state of Wyoming Department of Veterans of the Foreign War. Veterans of Foreign War simply means that you've served in a combat zone. If you serve during the time of that action, supporting the actions of the people in the hostile areas, you will be eligible because you are a Vietnam eligible veteran. But I had the privilege of serving in Thailand and Vietnam, where they both had Agent Orange, and I'm a victim of it, and I'm suffering from it now. So, with that said, and we've identified who's military connected, past or present, I appreciate what you do. I advocate for you. When I'm at the base, I talk to the people on active duty, and I say, you know, you can't say anything when you're in uniform, but guess what? I'm your advocate. I speak to them. And that's what Senator Enzi's action was, to see that they get what they need. So I served honorably for 6 years as his Veterans Advisor. I'm still serving. I find we have a lot of veterans who are not claiming their Vietnam or whatever service they served in benefits at the VA hospital. Locally, we have an outstanding hospital. I would say it's better than the $1 trillion hospital in Aurora, Colorado. I recommend that if you have not got in the system, a lot of things have happened since President Biden signed the PAC Act. It covers the people who served in the areas that had open burn pits, the Gulf War when they lit the oil wells, and now they're having respiratory problems. All of those are covered. Agent Orange and the agents that were used with them. Agent Orange was deployed to kill foliage around Marine and Army base camps to give them a wider kill range. They didn't know that they would also be dying from those diseases eventually, or the civilian population of South Vietnam. So it's still ongoing. I'm still having issues with that. And if you are having any problems from a reserve, from having served over there, please know the moment you came back and impregnated your girlfriend or your wife, you implanted that in that fetus. As they get older down the road, they may have issues. If that is the case, and they're in the system at the VA, they will take care of you, regardless of your age. Our veterans don't know their benefits and their entitlements, and that's what I advocate for them. It's good to see that Senator Geringer, later Governor Geringer, has a person that is following in Dad's footsteps. You're going to run for governor one day? But I don't want to take any more of your time. It's nice to come and speak to you who come to give some time, 40 days or 20 days. And we always get bad weather when you come, so I don't know what's up with that. But I hope that you have safe travels back to your homes and that you get lots of experience from serving here. It's a learning experience. And I've been retired from the Capitol Police, a part of the Attorney General's Department of Criminal Investigation since the 3rd of January 1998. And I've been involved ever since with other activities, specifically the veterans and their families. So with that, I will not take up any more of your time. I know that some of you are probably hungry. I see it's 5 minutes after 12, and it's probably time to go get some victuals. Thank you for allowing me to sit and listen to your debates, to see new faces here. I counted 8 women on the Senate side last night as I looked at my directory. That's the largest number I've ever heard of in my time, and I've been around here since '77. I see a lot of females in here. Keep on the good show. You're doing it. You're rising. You have lots to say, and you're serving the people of the state and this nation. And I just met Cynthia Lummus as she came into the rotunda. I am assisting her in getting a VA grave marker on her father's grave. He was a World War II veteran. Since he passed away and I knew him in life, I have gone every year and put a flag on his grave for Memorial Day and Veterans Day. One day I won't be able to do that. So we're in the process of getting that corrected by getting a marker for his grave. And if any of you here have loved ones that have served and you don't have a military marker from the VA, costs you nothing more than to go to the cemetery and look at that grave, and then seek out the mortuary services that took care of the funeral. They should have that all-important DD 214, a record of service that we all get when we complete our tour of service. That's where your benefits come in at the VA and military honors and whatnot once you leave this earth. So with that, make sure that someone in your family knows where the DD 214 is. If you have one and you've not gone to your county clerk and registered, that doesn't cost you anything. They will upload that for you in case something happens and you lose that copy. So please do that and look after yourselves. Be safe as you go home. Thank you for your deliberations. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir, for your service, first of all, to this country, and secondly, to those that have offered to or have served this great nation. We support you, and we're thankful that you took the time to come and address this body today. Continue to do well and thrive, and continue to support our veterans and our folks in the military, because it's because of their sacrifice and their willingness to sign basically an open check that we are able to be in a nation that we can enjoy freedom. So thank you, sir, for all that you do for us and others. Representative and Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until 2 p.m.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The House will stand in recess until 2 p.m. Committee announcements. Any committee announcements? Representative Bear, Chair Bear.
Chair Bear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2 will be meeting at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. in room 301, and we will meet online as well to discuss Senate File 191, State Funds Proxy Voting and Pecuniary Investments, as well as Senate File 39, Automatic Transfer of Automatic Automobile Title Upon Death and Re-Referrals as assigned.
Thank you, Chairman Bear. Any other announcements? Representative Knapp. Chair Knapp.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Your Corporations Committee will meet upon noon recess to finish hearing on SF 98, School Board Trustees Party Affiliations, and SF 127, Engrossed Administrative Rules Legislative Review.
Thank you, Chairman Knapp. Any others? Seeing none, the House will stand in recess until 2 p.m. I've got to run down and present.